The dim light of the moon cast elongated shadows across the room, their tendrils creeping over the walls like silent waiting hands. Mariah stood at the window, staring into the vast night sky that stretched endlessly before her, dark and infinite. The stars flickered faintly, cold and distant, as if they too hesitated to get too close. There was always this space, this unbridgeable chasm between her and everything else. It felt as though she stood at the edge of the world, alone, teetering between two extremes. Outside, the wind howled like a beast, rattling the windows as if to remind her of its presence, its unseen power. But inside there was silence, a silence so thick it pressed in around her, sinking deep into her bones. The only sound she could hear was the beating of her own heart, relentless and uneven, as though it too couldn't decide how to feel. Up, down, up, down. Mariah's thoughts spun wildly, like the great pendulum in the clock that stood in the corner, swinging with deliberate, maddening precision. Each tick was a heartbeat, each talk a shift, a movement between two worlds, the light and the dark, the joy and the despair. She could feel it in her chest, that constant sway, pulling her this way and that, never letting her rest. Some days, she was filled with a lightness so profound it made her feel weightless, as though her feet no longer touched the ground, as though she could soar. Her thoughts would race ahead of her, ideas bursting forth like the bloom of wildflowers in the spring, beautiful and untamed. On those days, she felt invincible. The world was hers, and everything shimmered with a brilliance that only she could see. Colors were brighter, sounds clearer, and the possibilities stretched endlessly before her. But those days never lasted. Inevitably, the light would fade, slowly at first, until it collapsed into a suffocating darkness. Then the air grew heavy and thick, like the damp fog that clung to her village in the early hours of the morning. On those days, the weight of her own existence was unbearable, and she would retreat, sinking into the depths of her mind, where the shadows waited for her with open arms. It was during those times that the whispers began. Faint at first, they were the kind of whispers that crawled along the edges of her thoughts, barely audible yet impossible to ignore. "You are nothing," they murmured. "You are lost. You cannot escape this." Mariah pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the window, the chill seeping into her skin, grounding her in the present. But the whispers continued, growing louder, more insistent, as though they had found a way to live inside her. And yet, as her mind began to spiral down into the familiar depths of despair, a different sound began to emerge, a soft rhythmic pulse. It was the sound of her own breathing, steady and calm, rising above the chaotic whispers like the soft hum of a lullaby. She hadn't noticed it at first, but now it was all she could hear. The slow, even inhale followed by the gentle release of breath. Each exhale carried with it a sense of release, of letting go, as though with every breath, the weight on her chest lightened just a little. The pendulum in the clock continued its steady rhythm. But now, instead of pulling her from one extreme to another, it seemed to guide her, its swings becoming slower, more deliberate. "Let it go," a voice whispered, not the cruel voice of her despair, but something gentler, something kind. "Breathe, feel the ground beneath your feet. You are safe here." Mariah's fingers loosened from their grip on the windowsill, her hands slowly uncurling as the tension drained from her body. She hadn't realized how tightly she had been holding on to the fear, the worry, the endless cycle that pulled her from joy to sorrow, from light to dark. But now, as she breathed, she could feel the shift, subtle at first but growing with each passing moment. "Feel the stillness," the voice continued, soothing, wrapping around her like a warm blanket. "There is no need to swing so far, to reach for the extremes. You can find your balance here, in the center, in the calm. Her breath deepened, and with each inhale, she felt herself sinking deeper into that calm, that stillness. The pendulum still swung, but its arc was smaller now, slower, more controlled. She no longer felt as though she was being pulled along with it. Instead, she watched, detached from a place of quiet observation. You are more than the swing, the voice said, gently reminding her. You are the space between. Focus on that space, that stillness between the movements. Mariah closed her eyes, allowing the words to sink in. The darkness behind her eyelids was no longer suffocating. It was soft, comforting, like the embrace of a loved one. She felt her body relax further, sinking into the chair behind her, the warmth of the room enveloping her like a cocoon. As she drifted deeper into this place of calm, the voice began to guide her further, gently introducing the idea of choice. The pendulum swings because that is its nature, it said. But you are not the pendulum. You have the choice to stay in the center, to find balance in the stillness. The words resonated deep within her, each one settling like a pebble dropped into a still pond, sending ripples of understanding through her mind. She had spent so long being dragged by the swing, by the constant pull between her highs and lows, that she had forgotten she could choose something different. She could choose stillness. And in that stillness, you will find your strength, the voice whispered. You are not bound by the extremes. You are the calm in between. Mariah's breath came more easily now, her mind no longer racing, no longer caught in the endless cycle. She could feel the truth of the words sinking in, deep into the core of her being. The swings would still come, she knew that, but she no longer had to be a passenger, helplessly carried along. She could remain in the center, in the calm, and watch the world move around her without being swept away. The pendulum in the clock had slowed almost to a stop, its once frantic swings now reduced to a gentle sway. The whispers in her mind had quieted, their voices fading into the background, replaced by a deep, abiding peace. As the night deepened, Mariah remained still, her breath slow and steady, her body at rest. The fog outside had lifted, and the stars above shone brighter, their light soft and comforting. The darkness was no longer something to fear. It was simply another part of the world, a part she could observe without being consumed by it. You are safe, the voice whispered one final time, leaving her in a state of deep relaxation, her mind open and receptive. You are the calm at the center of the storm. Mariah smiled softly, her eyes still closed, her body and mind at peace. She had found her center, her balance, and she knew now that no matter how the pendulum swung, she could always return to this place of stillness, this place of calm. And in that stillness, she would remain quiet, strong, and free.